He said that he would get it taken care of when he came back. He's been out of the country. He was not even aware until I texted him that his system needed to be inspected. That's all I can tell you on that. The next one is on 110 Forts Lane on Wilcox's. Stacy, I believe you sent me, because an email you sent me on there, the address that we had is not correct.
There was something with that. Is that the one that was, excuse me, confused with the Sharptons? No, then I don't remember. I'm sorry.
Letter was sent April 1st.
Oh, right. And it was returned.
Oh,
It was returned to me.
the mailing address that we use is the mailing address that the Gunnison County assessor has on file. Actually. So, so that one came back as returned for wrong address.
Correct. Yep.
So that one, I'm not sure what we do with that. We'll come back to that one, so I guess all four of these. The next one is at 908 Porch Lane, that's Rick Jones. That one is again mailed to his P.O. box that he has on file with the county assessor, and he no longer has a P.O. box. So that both the original letter and the certified letter were both sent to P.O. Box 177, but he doesn't have one. So they will return. And then the last one, actually, there's two more. This one on James Sharpton, 910 State Street. Stacy, did you get the correct inspection form back from me?
No, I have not sent that email yet, though. It's at the top of my to-do list, but I have not emailed him or called him yet.
What I can tell you on Sharpton's that I visually saw. Chris Nasso and I were sitting on the porch of the Plume. We saw turd herder come to Sharpton's residence. They dug up both lids, they pumped the tanks, and then turd herder left. We got an inspection, we got the $25 fee from Sharpton's. And then the inspection form that we got was an old inspection form that James did for Allwood's house years ago. I believe he sent the wrong form. I feel comfortable after seeing turd herder there pumping tanks. That they got the tanks pumped and inspected. But we need the correct inspection form to fit in.
They also paid their $25 fee. So I do feel like they did it, but we do need the appropriate paperwork.
I think we need to clarify that one. And then the last one is 201 9th Street. That was actually due last year. They were sent a letter for the inspection in 2024. They were sent a certified letter stating that they need to get it done in 2024. And this year, we mailed them a letter on April 1st and a certified letter with no response on it whatsoever. But that system is actually, should have been inspected last year and still hasn't. So now comes the question, I guess I'm fighting. Personally, I'm comfortable with James Sharpton and getting his inspection form correctly. Someone thinks differently. But where do we want to go with?
Okay, this is Tom. And this objection that we received from Mr. McCaskey, this same objection was voiced by this board before Corey was on it, that we would not be enforcing any ordinances, regardless of whether they were state or town ordinances, unless we could enforce them all. And that was fairly loud and clear, and that went out to all the public. And so we have set a mindset out there, not too many months ago, that this is the situation, which causes me to be surprised that we got the compliance we did on the request. That being said, I will not comply unless the town manages to enforce all of this ordinance, rather than just pick and choose which ones they think are important, or more important, or very important, or whatever. Is something that we promulgated sometime back as a board. I personally did complain about it a little bit with the remark that we do have to start somewhere, but that got shut in. So here we are again with a public that is probably still, many of them operating under the same mindset that we don't put out there. And with that being the case, this is not to say I'm opposed to this. I'm going to say there's an order that this needs to happen. And it is my opinion that we need to post, email, and publish the town ordinance that we are going to have compliance with. What compliance looks like, what the penalties will be, and how those will be instituted. And that's my opinion on the subject. I'm hesitant to jump so quickly on a flip flop of what we had put out in the here, I don't know, 6, 7 months later. Jumping on one too hard. And we need to get the whole package up. I would personally like to have a book of everything. So that's my, and I'll just give it that.
So the ordinances are all on the website from 21 and forward, for sure. There's some of the older ones that are, I guess, we'll say probably been like posted, but we've probably got going back to 71. I bet we've got over 100.
Well, and that's the other thing, the board pointed out. Is it last meeting? Well, we got some cleaning up to do. And that falls in the same category.
So I will point out, literally the first meeting I was in, we sat and had this conversation.
Yeah.
And said, we gotta take this serious and specifically asked every person on the board if we were serious about enforcing these ordinances, and everybody up here said yes.
Still serious.
And just like our attorney said, just because you're actively enforcing a noxious speed ordinance doesn't mean you want to get to enforce your OWTS ordinance. You know, it's saying that the order of ordinances that we have on file is pretty high up there on things we should enforce. Not saying that certain ones are more valuable than the others, but the OWTS ordinance potentially has the most ramifications for the town. And this is what I did not want to get into, was going, oh, well, we're not going to enforce anything because, you know, we're not going to enforce this ordinance because we're not doing. You have to start somewhere.
This start somewhere, but it would be nice.
Yeah.
If the somewhere had
And this is
in latitude of ordinances that we are going to.
the other thing is, how many letters were sent out this year? 30? So we sent out, required 30 property owners to do this, and you have 3 that especially should be thumbing their nose at the town. It's not fair to the other 27 that spent the money, came into compliance. It's not fair to the one prior to last year and everything else. For the town to just go, oh, yeah, you spent a strong. You know, if I have to go spend several $100 out of my septic inspection, which I'm sure it's probably coming up next year. Mine is, hey, I'll get it done. And B, I'll be pissed if you're not making somebody else do it. Fair. That's, you know. Like Hillary said, you can have the conscious objection to the ordinance or the lack of enforcement, but that doesn't mean it's not a wrong ordinance. And I believe there's actually some methods of enforcement of financial. If Hillary did correct me on that.
I didn't hear that last part. It was kind of jumbled.
There's some methods to actually enforce our fees and fines now, if I understand that correctly, because I think that's been the thing in the past is people are like, well, what are you gonna do? You're not gonna fine me. And I don't think that's exactly accurate anymore, from what I understand, that there's state statutes regarding how these fees can be ordered to a county level, correct?
Well, I see a couple impacts. If the town chooses not to enforce the OWTS regs, it can be stripped of its Board of Health authority. So, and then it reverts to the county to do the work, or the state. So it's a matter of keeping it local and retaining your local control is what I would say. And yeah, I mean, I think it would be very unusual to be a governing body that chooses not to enforce and govern. That's kind of the role that you're taking on as being members of the Board of Trustees or the Board of Public Health. And I wouldn't favor an approach that says we don't do anything around here. That's not the message I think you want to send.
So to Hillary's point, the first conversation that I had with our new OWTS coordinator from the state, and he called me, was he was under the understanding that in 2024, we had 2 properties that were not inspected. And he had asked where in the town they did it. And my statement to him was we have to enforce our OWTS. And I think that started his and my relationship off to a pretty good start. And I think that was the right thing to do. And concur with what the county attorney just told us, he did say that if we decide not to enforce our OWTS ordinance, the county would be safe to. So I don't think we have a choice. I keep hearing this. Not enforcing the camping ordinance. I would certainly invite everyone to go and read our 2 camping ordinances and fully understand what they say. Because there's a belief out there that our camping ordinance, we should be able to enforce that ordinance by anybody that has a camper parked on their property. We should be able to go and say, you can't park it. That's not what the ordinance says. The ordinance also says that it only applies to private property that is improved property, not unimproved property. So there's some real misunderstanding of what our camping ordinances are and how people think we should be able to apply it to any camping. We absolutely cannot. It's not the ordinance of it. So I keep hearing the camping ordinance coming up. And unless we can identify when someone stays in that camper for 30 days, as the ordinance says, be tough enforcement of someone that's there for a week and leaves for a week, comes back for a week. Well, they just park it on the property. There's nothing wrong with parking that camper on the property. So unfortunately, that's where we're at in our ordinance. I'm a big believer in fewer ordinances rather than more. But when we do that as a town, we as citizens or property owners have to be willing to abide by our self-belief. And get off on the rant here. That's basically what it is, unless people really want more ordinances, but that's what I hear from people coming to Pitkin all the time. That's why we like Pitkin. There's not a lot of ordinances. There's not a lot of government control. And it's more laid back and more lax, but we as citizens also have to take care of it. So. Sorry, so I'm gonna rant, maybe I'll talk.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Tim.
So, yeah, I'm not afraid on rules and regulations either, but I can say my opinion is before you start enforcing OWTS is supposed to start. That's since health and welfare. You know, some of these, you've got a bridge across the creek in front of your house. That, you know, we have a lot of communities that I think where they start. And good conscience for health, safety, and welfare, and that is.
Well, I think the other thing, we have a responsibility to the town. In more obvious more ways than one, but if we fail to enforce this ordinance, it does go back to the county, or it goes to a state level. That drastically changes future property owners in town and future property owners. You know, that's my understanding is why the Board of Health is here. We're able to enforce and regulate our WTS here. At a county level, my understanding is that changes things drastically. The county requirements, maybe they would have a different set of rules that Pitkin needs to play by, but it'd be extremely hard, from what I understand, to abide by the county regulations in this town. And so I think we need to be diligent and maintain our public Board of Health, authority. And I guess where I'm going is like, Hillary, what options do we have for these three? I don't think not enforcing the ordinance just because we get a strong word. There's a couple of people at the state certified is responsible for this Board of Health.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say the Board of Trustees and the Board of Health has a duty to enforce the regulations and the ordinances that are on the books. That's the role of those bodies. If the town wants to get out of the business of regulating OWTS, then it should disband its Board of Health. But my understanding is there is a preference to having it be local. And there are certain benefits to that. The citizens get to deal with the local Board of Health as opposed to state agencies or county agencies. And if you're going to do it, I think you have to do it right.
Yeah. So what options do we have with these? I mean, ultimately it comes down to looks like about 3 for this season. But admittedly, we're probably going to have a few next year that are delinquent. I mean, what are our next steps here?
So they could be notified that they're in violation. The fines are, as stated in the newly adopted fee schedule, $50 a day. So there's some incentive to get things in order sooner rather than later. The fees would just accrue daily until the matter was addressed to the Board of Health satisfaction. And I can assist with sending out notices or whatever needs to be done. But that would be my recommendation for next steps is notify them they're out of compliance.
So do you start by informing people that it could, if these fees just keep accruing and they don't pay them, that we do have a way to collect them through their county, through the taxes?
You do have a way. That would be what part of the updates for the OWTS regs that you're considering. The ones on the books don't have, from the ordinance in 2021, don't have a clear connection to collection by taxes, but the updated ones would. So that would be a town remedy.
So Hillary, would it be? I'm trying to just to be somewhat on the reasonable side, given the fact that our fee schedule is not necessarily with state compliance prior to today. Would a reasonable solution be to say notify them that you're in violation? And if it's not taken care of by September the 15th of next year, the fee will start accruing daily. And there's really no excuse at that point, because you've had almost a year that you've been in violation, and you know about it, you've been notified. Is that somewhat of a reasonable solution to this, if we give people, the people that are in violation plenty of time, given the fact that our fee schedule wasn't in compliance?
Well, I don't think that the technical the technicality with the fee schedule prohibits anything from being enforceable. What we're doing now is saying that the fee is $50 per day versus, I think it previously said $500. So I don't see that as being problematic or an obstacle to enforcement. The question of whether it's reasonable, that's a policy decision for you guys. I can tell you it's legally enforceable now. It'll be legally enforceable September 15th of next year. If you want to provide some leniency for your residents, you sure can. That's up to you.
I'm sorry, Hillary, did you say basically in the new reg 43, once it's adopted, that's what makes the provision for collection of fees or fines as part of the county property tax?
Correct. That's a proposed change for the new ordinance.
Okay.
Yep.
So really, at this point, we don't really have a mechanism until that's adopted to collect that fee.
Right. I
Is-
mean, you can ask until you're blue in the face, but you don't have a real enforcement mechanism.
Oh,
Sorry, we lost you.
Oh, did the audio cut out? So yeah, I mean, it's still a valid fine. It's just going to be harder to collect without the resort to the tax rolls.
Well, the other question I have is, if it's $50 per day, when does that start? Will it start on, because the ordinance says September 15th is when they would do. But does that start September 16th, or can we put a different date out there with a letter saying you're in violation, that after this date, whatever it might be, it will be a fine of $50 per day?
Yeah, again, policy decision, you can set that start time when you see fit.
So along that same line, one of my concerns is that a number of these people, actually, it's a total of 5, because I wrote them all down. One's out of the country, didn't get the letter. Because it was sent out on June 27th, we left July 1st. Wilcox, the letters were returned, was undelivered. Rick Jones doesn't have a PO box. And Sean Butler was just been ignoring. Oh. So those, like the one that doesn't have a PO box, how can we notify him that his septic system, A, should have been inspected, and B, he's delinquent on the inspection?
Well,
Yeah.
I don't read this. So go ahead.
I'm gonna ask if we have that served. Share for that individual, because that individual does live here in town.
What was that last thing? They don't live in town?
This individual does live here in town. Rick Jones of 908 Ports Lane does live here.
Yeah, you could do personal service. I could look at the OWTS statutes to see if there's any kind of alternative notice. I would say the inspection obligation, it's on the user who installs an OWTS system to know that they have to do these inspections. It doesn't change things if the town does or doesn't notify them. That's more of a courtesy. The actual obligation to have the inspection every 7 years, that's on the owner of the system. So I don't view the lack of notice as being any kind of fatal problem. It doesn't affect the town's ability to enforce. It's just, like I said, a courtesy. Um,
So the other, I mean, I'm gonna think out loud, I seem to do that a lot. The other issue I have is that if we send them a letter and say, okay, starting on whatever date, you're gonna be fined $50 per day until we get an inspection, we're very quickly gonna get into the time of the year that it's really gonna be hard to get an inspection. We might have another 3 weeks, maybe a month, maybe, before we have frozen ground and frozen lids and a couple feet of snow. So I'm not, I'm just throwing that out there because I think it's something we need to consider in giving some of these folks a little more time. And part of me almost says, okay, everybody should have known about it, it's people done. But maybe we get till December 1st if they get an inspection done. Fine start on December 1st. But there again, when we get the time of the year, December 1st, it's gonna be hard for them to get it. Maybe. People get it.
This is Tom, and I have a question. Am I to understand that, state statute says the maximum fine per day is $50, but that it could be less than that?
I would have to look at that. It may just mandate that the fine is $50 a day.
But I think
So I don't know offhand is the answer.
just approve the fee schedule and said it's $50 a day. We'll pay $50 less. Well, my point is that you could. Whoever these people are, they're gonna be out there. And $50 if we go to the next bill. Oh, no, get any June?
I have an answer. I was able to find it quickly. It's up to $50 a day for each violation.
My concern is, I don't necessarily want to reward people just thumbing their nose at the town. You know, there was 30 people that were on the list, and there was 27 who managed to get it done. Well, 25 who managed to get it done in time. But at the same time, I do realize we're gonna get in the winter and it's exponentially harder to get an inspection. I guess where I'm going is I'm just kind of okay with saying, you know what? Get till September 15th, and then the TA crews, no ifs, ands, or buts. If you're delinquent this year, you've had over a year. There's no excuse. Get it done, just like everybody else does. And I think it's a nice clean date because that's what everybody's gonna get a letter next year has to have it done by. So when we're revisiting this next year in September, we're looking at the list going, okay, it's after September 15th, here we go. Like I said, I don't want to reward people that are just gonna, willingly thumb their nose at the town. But at the same time, like trying to be somewhat reasonable with that, we don't have a lot of weather left that's conducive to doing this inspection.
So it would be real easy on our inspections for next year. I've got the list. That's our list of 53 people, or 53 properties next year that need to be inspected. Very simply add these 5 to that list that they got to be done by September 15th. That's giving them a year lead. I think that's real lead.
Well, I think it helps us put that mechanism into place of having the fees collected at a county level. Because I think that's been part of the attitude is it's like, well, good luck enforcing that, and collecting the fine. And I think it takes on a whole different meaning as part of your property tax.
All right, other comments.
Yes, here, resident of Pitkin. Due to these 5, I believe definitely are in a situation of intent to fulfill their requirements. They got lost through medical circumstances, and out of the states. Definitely worth the thing. 2 of the other 3 are being very obnoxious for unknown reasons, and we just don't want to cooperate. And then the 3rd one, I have no idea why. I'm wondering if we can propose a letter and have the Johnson County Sheriff deliver it to these 2 that live in Pitkin. And the gentleman in the 9th and Main Street, wherever he resides, by his tax identity. Have a sheriff in that county deliver it to him and make it real straight. I have a hard time giving them another year. And that one that's a year old already. If you don't start with OWTS, which is health and welfare, nobody wants our water. But let's not pay it. We should have, or whatever, should have. We don't want to have that hindsight problem. And it's been said many times, if you're bored, 27 of them, 25 of them jump right to the hoops and took care of their responsibilities. And as being a citizen of Pitkin, we have responsibilities. And you compared running stop signs and speeding. Yes, that's true. And yes, you are endangering somebody's health and welfare. But it's a whole different story than trickling on downstream in Ohio City or wherever else. I believe OWTS is the place to start. We have mandates from the state. And our local people don't want county mandates either. If you get them to understand what the requirements are from the county, they don't want that either. So and some of my friends with these people, I know, but that doesn't give them a free. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Anybody else would like to make any comments?
It's still I have our will boxes, and but she only has them signed.
David Wilcox, 110 Fort Lane.
It would be 410 Forts Lane.
I know the cost. It's Barbara, we can, because she said. I've been in the. No.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's the fish.
Right behind Doug Bow.
That may not be the same.
I don't think it's.
110 Quartz Lane is Josh Ackerman. Right?
No, 110 Forts Lane was David Gregory Wilcox. That's Elizabeth Wallace and Stiles Channing Smith.
So it's not one.
Is that the house that's next to Susan?
Between Ackerman and Susan. That's.
Yeah.
That's.
And it's 110?
110 Forts Lane.
What's Josh's address? Oh, might be first.
He's on first.
311 First.
Who's on first? No, I'm just kidding. That makes me think of that funny, who's on?
So,
Yeah, that is.
I don't know how we get a correct mailing address. That's the same address within county inspection.
Yeah.
That's one of the issues.
I'm looking at this, and are those just typos here? It says 2080 and 2087.
There's a couple of dates to search and
Oh,
found 2080.
Yeah, there are a few of them.
Yep.
This one, something else I feel. But there are some addresses on the spreadsheet that the county assessor shows an ASDS installed, but the county Pitkin OWTS shows it isn't a septic system. So with that unknown, that's a different meeting we need to have. What we're gonna do, I have to put the far out dates so that I can sort them. They out. So. I guess a question for Hilary, and I'll just focus on Wilcox. How else can we notify them if we don't have with the county assessor a correct address and the letter is returned?
Well, I think I might ask a different question, which is why do you need to notify them? Is it because you want them to come into compliance?
Well, for whichever way we go here, if to let them know that they need to come into compliance, and there should be a $50 a day. That's what I'm, and I know it goes back to your comment that it's a courtesy for the town to let them know that
Yeah.
they're due for an inspection, but it's really on the property. They understand.
Right. So I would say that in this situation, in other contexts, there will be the option for posting the property, giving notice in other ways. But I don't know whether the OWTS statute addresses that or whether the regs do. So I would like the opportunity to look into it.
So what we need to decide tonight is, do we want to, and this, I'm asking this as a question. Do we need to decide tonight if we want to set a specific date to have to be completed by when the fight starts? Is that right?
Well, I
I mean-
think yes. Also, do you want to defer the penalties until the town has the updated ordinance with the authority to collect fines through the tax rolls?
I personally would. I think that makes things much cleaner, and I don't know, how I'd say it provides a little more teeth to the ordinance to say, look, there is an actual collection mechanism. And going back to, I know it's a courtesy. It's also the fact that we all live in a town of 80-ish year-round residents and a few hundred people, so I wanna look back at this and go, look, we have made every opportunity. So when, say whatever that date is, if it's September 15th rolls around, the town has gone above and beyond to notify you. There's really no excuse at this time. And I know to your point saying that, it's more of a common courtesy, well, I want to retain that, I want to keep doing that part. Right or wrong, I want to do as much as we can to be, neighborly in some ways, but like I said, it gets back to it needs to be fair to everybody, just to turn a blind eye to certain people and require everybody else to do it, that's just fair to me.
Thomas had a comment.
Good evening, Thomas Kelly, property owner. Two comments. The first is with respect to whether the town, at the courtesy or for whatever other reason, advises residents when they do. I understand Hillary's point, but like everyone to be cognizant of the fact that for many years there were no inspections required. Then at one point, inspections required every 5 years. At another point, every 3 years. Now it's every 7 years. I think it's in town's best interest to continue to do what it does and list these people each year that they are due to fulfill their inspection requirements as they're doing. With regard to the group of people, the 5 people out of 30 people who have not complied this year, I think that there's 3 different categories. There's a category of people who haven't been notified, even though it may be a courtesy. They still have not been notified due to issues with their address. I think we should do everything we can to serve them due notice. The second category of people have been notified and they've told the town they're going to take steps to remedy the situation. And then the third group is the more difficult group, which are in defiance of what the town is trying to do. For that group, I think we decided we would put a very strong letter and discuss the penalties, etc. Many of them want to point out case 3 years and their things should be handled differently.
Thank you, Thomas. I've got another thought, Thomas. Rather than going all the way to September 15th of next year, these 5 have until August 1st of next year. And after August 1st, it is $50 per day. And if they don't get it done by September 15th, it's $50 per day, continuing on that 50. August 1st and 15th, it's only $2,200, $2,250. I would think that'd be an incentive that I don't think I want to wait until June, July to get it done. Or as soon as the spring opens up, the inspections go in. I'm just throwing it out there now. My knee-jerk reaction was December 1st. And they got a month for 6 weeks to get it done. But I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't want to tell someone you got 6 weeks and then 3 weeks from now it's not really a must.
I'm fine with that. I think it needs to be stating that's been my whole issue is you're essentially, if you give them till September 15th of next year, you're essentially rewarding them. We're not complying with the other 20, let's call it 27, we'll feel certain instead of 2, we're gonna be compliant. So there needs to be some incentive. And like I said, just struggle with people just willingly thumbing their nose at the town about stuff like that. And it gets back to probably what is one of our most important ordinances. And not to sound like a broken record, but the more this town can retain control of what happens in this town, which county having control, or the state having control, the better it is for every single person on the property. You lose control of the county or the state, it's it. So I'm not a bad idea, it's August 1st, if you already had till September 5th, 25. Can we send out, I know it's almost pointless, can we send another letter to the essentially Green Main saying you're in violation? You have till August 1st, this is what it is. And I feel like at that point, the town has done everything they possibly can to provide notice to these people that seemingly willfully or from the nose.
Why would you give them clear till August 1st? Yeah. By the middle of June, for sure. Everything is, nothing's frozen. I would say June 15th or June 1st.
I'm going with dates.
June 1st. June 1st.
So along that line on June 1st, thinking, and think this through. If we send them a letter saying you're in violation, you have to June 1st. And then $50 a day starts. That gives them time to get, say, well, I want to get it done this year. Just in case you can't get it done in June or May next year.
Or the schedule.
Or what's that?
It gives you an opportunity to schedule.
If gives them the opportunity to schedule it, when they get it, if they can't get it done this year, they get it done by May. Really in May. So they'll get that June 1st deadline. And by then we will have the ordinance in place too, that we will be collecting fees and fines through the county system.
June 1st is fine with me too.
I think that's getting ample time in this year yet, since it's been so nice to get it scheduled, get it done. And the night was pretty lenient. I feel bad pushing it to September 15th simply because 2,500 people complained. So Hillary, would you agree? Would you say that we're okay with sending a letter? I've asked you to help wrap that right. Saying that they're not in compliance and they have to June 1st, 26th to complete their required delinquent inspection. And beyond that, it will be $50 per day.
Yeah, I think that's generous. And I think those that are not in compliance by June 1st would need a another notice saying you are now, we are finding you in violation. But this would be kind of like a notice before the notice, last chance.
But this lets them know what the deadline is, but something they should have done. All right, so is this. Anybody want to make a motion on that line? Make a motion. Don't very good. This is it, I will make a motion that we send a letter of notification to these 5 individuals that we discussed, certified. And certified letter. We'll have a couple of attorney draft that letter. Notifying them that they are delinquent in their 2025 WPS section. And we're graciously giving them until June 1st of 2026. If that completed, upon that date, if it is not completed, it will be fined $50 per day. So it's,
I'll second that motion.
Could I interject? Do you want to consider perhaps amending the motion to allow other forms of notice if I am able to confirm that those are options? So that would include potentially posting, property, publication, personal service, things like that.
so I would amend that motion. To include any of all other possible notifications.
And do you want to accept that amendment as you as the second, Corey?
Yes, I'll second the amended
Okay.
motion.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. We need all that. Hopefully allow these 5 people until June 1st, on that date. Not completed, with $50 per day fine, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so Hillary, if you'll work on a letter for us, and provide the dates, the addresses of these individuals. And names.
Will do.
All right, so then last month. Is zoning code updates, 2021 energy code. And the 2025 resiliency code, so we set a work session to. For budget. We need to set some work dates to go over the wildfire resiliency code. And what the state is requiring. There is appendixes that the town, we could make it more stringent. But I think we need to definitely look at what the base code looks like. That one must be adopted by April 1st, so that to me becomes number 1 on the priority list. The zoning code updates. I would see is number 2, and then the energy code is number 3. The energy code, the 2021 energy code, we must have adopted by July 1st. Or we will be stuck with the 2024 low carbon, which you do not want. And that becomes a pretty high priority. So let's set a date. We recommend for the wildfire resiliency code. The work session date in it. I will just say to the public, it would be good for the public to at least listen on that wildfire resiliency code work session. And I have the deck from the state, the Fire Protection Division of the state, that outlines the base requirements. I think it would be wise for the public to know what's coming and what legislation intended is imposed upon us.
It's not good for small towns like this.
Yeah.
But no, and our, just what I had said, our hands are kind of tied that we have to adopt this code. You should read it. But it's online, you should read it. It's not a good thing. It's a state code. It's pretty, if you just Google Colorado Wildlife Resiliency Code. Read through it. It's pretty. You know, if you have your house and you're done, probably doesn't affect you, but if you gotta build something or have one. Not a lot of fun.
Other restrictions, don't be built in. If the issue is over 500 square feet. So, okay.
That being said, our work session for this probably not to be very long.
It'll be a little bit going through what the state's required, but I don't know.
Yeah. From what I read through, the town doesn't have many, if at all, options. And it's not like the WCS regulations where you pick yes or no here, yes or no. It's like, here's the code. And of course, we don't really have a lot of decision to do.
So. How soon do we want to? 19. So we work session for October 27th. And for budget. Do another one, we do the 27th next week. Next week. Let me rephrase it. Are we open to doing another one? Or the first week of November?
As much as I don't want to, I really do not need it. I hate problems, it's not weak, but. It's just really a consensus for a long period. Take a look at it. It's not up here.
Okay, you want that Wednesday, the 29th, like next Wednesday? We got Monday at 7 for budget. And then Wednesday at 7 for results.
You don't think that'd take too long?
Well,
I got it to wait.
just pay the training that I went through was 4 hours. I said, we're not doing. There's a whole lot of slides. If we had the code printed in front of us, the slides reference to page numbers, and we could go through them. Fairly.
I'll tell me.
So it's Wednesday the 29th of February.
Yeah.
So,
What time?
7 unless people are go early. Next meeting.
Not for us.
This is it, I'll move, we do a work session on October 29th at 7 o'clock for the wildfire resiliency code.
One second, motion.
Motion in a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Well, on these work sessions, I would rather, this actually, I'd rather get this thing done. It's another Thanksgiving gets busy, Christmas gets busy, New Year's gets busy. So I'd rather if I get this stuff done, we're all we have.
So. The review.
You know, certain time. Options there, we don't adopt it by.
Zone code was. For. we. I think we did the song, put that. Looking for. Fire to the 20 energy.
So we need to do that before we adopt the energy code, so but the energy code has to be adopted by July 1st.
So we could potentially do a work session for zoning codes in November, early in November. Maybe try December for me.
Yes. I will say on the zoning code, I'm sure we're gonna have quite a few questions for Hillary.
So there's gonna be some questions on the zoning code. Would that, Hillary, would that be a possibility for you to attend that work session?
Tell me the date again.
Sorry, I didn't hear your name, so.
What date?
Oh, what? Well, that's
Somewhere early November.
early November, so we're ready to do November 19th. But could we do November 12th? We can do the 10th just in case there is one. Can we do November 12th? That's a
Wednesday.
Yeah, I could make that.
We'll do November 12th. November 12th for the zone for the 7th.
You make a motion for that?
I will make a motion that we set November 12th at 7 o'clock for a work session for the zone code updates.
I'll second.
They're all in favor, say aye. Works, I don't have any further comments at this point for the mayor report. I don't know, Stacy, you have any for the town clerk?
She does not.
So, and I think we have a, street and ditch commissioner report that was sent out today,
Yes.
that's available. No other reports. With that, I will entertain a motion, go to the adjourn.
Yeah, this is Tom.
Yes.
Hello. Somebody else knows.
Oh, no.
This is Jared and my.
The second motion.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you, everyone.
See you guys.